Happy Friday, everyone. I was having a little technical issues here. Apologies to Patti Bottino. There is no sound to the video that I was trying to share. So I don't know what happened, but Mercury is in retrograde. So anything can and will happen today. I'm going to bring her right on. I was trying to get your video up, Patti,
Aw.
and it said that there was no sound there.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't know how it was set that it's not showing up with sound, but I'm glad that you're here. I want to thank everyone for being here today. It's Happy Ampersand Day. Now, Patti, do you know what an ampersand is?
Indeed, I do. It
Do you
is the
want to explain to everybody what an ampersand
have
is?
to. It is the and sign, as in Smith and Wesson, Smith and Company. Um, and it comes from the Latin et, which means and.
I knew that we had the right person on today for a lot of reasons. First of all, I want to thank you. You have been sponsoring this show and my guide for the last 5 weeks. So I want to thank you for that, number one. And I
My
want to let
pleasure.
everyone know that tomorrow night you are going to be doing Act 3 of your show once again at the Laurie Beachman Theater. You actually left the business for a while
I did.
to focus on your career as a teacher. Um, what is bringing you back now?
So, what a good question. I ask myself that often. um, so I was introduced to cabaret in the 1980s, late 80s, and then I was introduced and absolutely loved and adored it. It's my childhood dream to sing and entertain. And then I went to school to become a speech language pathologist, and I found graduate school all consuming. So everything else just went by the wayside. And frankly, it was not until 27 years later, with a chance meeting of Marilyn May in the back of the theater on 54th Street. We went to see the play Cabaret, and I noticed this beautifully coiffed woman and approached her and said, "Are you Marilyn May?" And one thing led to another. I asked her if she taught courses, and by the next week I was in her class, and that's where I met Barry Levitt. And so I felt that that was like Beshert, meant
Yes.
to be, that it was divine in many ways, because, how else would that happen? I was content being this wonderful speech language pathologist working with children, and worked with Barry, did a wonderful show. We had a couple of runs of that show. That was called Dream Come True. And, unfortunately, Barry left the planet. And
I was with him at that precise moment. I don't know if you know that or not.
I don't, Richard.
Yes, I was with him the moment he left.
Oh boy,
So,
oh
yes,
boy.
it was probably it was one of those moments that you never want to go through. But I consider what a gift that I was with him
Aw.
when he took his last breath on this planet.
Ay, 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 ay.
Yeah.
Yeah, very sad, very sad day.
But we celebrate these people. That's
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do two of his arrangements in this show, and I always mention him. I feel like I owe my return to both Marilyn and Barry. I would have never done this had I not had Barry's nurturing and caring. And so we did that show for a while, and then it took me another 7 years to put another show together. So two things happened at the same time, putting the show together. Well, actually, the thing that happened that precipitated the show is I retired from my job as a speech language pathologist in the New York City school system. And I didn't adjust very well to that change. And so I decided to sing about it. And that's what you'll hear if you come to my show tomorrow. And I like to describe it as the show is entertaining, poignant, and inspiring. And
Well,
that's
I want to say, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get the video up because I watched the long version of your sizzle reel, and wow, you've got chops.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I mean it's incredible, and
Aw, thank
it's
you.
very interesting. Earlier this week, I was interviewed for a publication because I did Capital Cabaret in Washington D.C. earlier this year, and one of the things that she asked me, and I'm going to ask you because I have my own version of this, but she asked, what how I would describe cabaret. And it's interesting because those of us who are part of this incredible community, we have a certain sense and style of what cabaret is all about. But what does cabaret mean to you, both as an artist and as an audience member?
So the answer for as an artist and an audience member would be the same. To me, it's an intimate sharing and storytelling moment. And I think that as performers, we get to tell our story, share some personal experiences. And as an audience member, I get to know that singer on a deeper level. I remember I went to someone's show last year sometime, and I didn't know any of those things about her. And I just felt like I knew her so much more intimately with a different level of, well, intimacy. I want to say love and respect and awe, because we all have a journey and not everybody gets up and is able to sing about it.
Exactly. You mentioned that this all shared running into Marilyn May and how that all began for you. Um, Obviously, I'm assuming that you were at somebody else's show that Marilyn happened to be at. Do you remember the first cabaret show that you ever saw?
Oh my goodness. Well, that would have been back in the 1980s. And I'm at that tender age where the memories from 20 years ago are not quite as crystal clear. Um, so I would have to go to something more recent. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not good with
Well,
names
let
and
me let me
remembrance.
refresh for just a moment because I mean you were a little older than you are in this picture here. You know what I love about this picture? Look at the attitude in those eyes. You know who this little girl knows who she is.
Ah.
What were your dreams when you were this age?
So the only thing I wanted to do was sing and dance and entertain. And, I would get out of bed in the morning and I would be singing a song and tap dancing. And it wasn't always well received. Sometimes the parents would get up a little on the grumpy side. And, so it wasn't really nurtured.
Hmm.
And, but that's it. That's it. And that's why even now at my retired age, it's like, well, it's now. It's now. It's just now.
I want you to get rid of the retired age. I want you to throw that away, and I just want you to refer to this as the next chapter.
Yes, exactly.
Because, I mean, when most people would be sitting back and planning vacations and doing all these
I'm
things,
doing that
thing-
too.
but you're doing a cabaret show,
Yes,
and that's a lot of work
certainly is.
and money. And so,
Certainly is.
everybody, if you're around tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, Laurie Beecham
7
is here.
p.m.
We're going to start bringing on our other guests, but before we do, I've laid out 4 cards, and I want to say, Zora, I don't know if you can hear me, but you're not in the wings. You may have cut yourself off of the phone or something. As I said, Mercury is in retrograde, so if you're within earshot of my voice, please sign back on so we can get you on today. So I've got 4 mystery questions laid out, and I want you to pull a number 1 through 4.
4.
And that will also be, and then we'll decide who we're going to bring on. The question is, what do you need to know to make the decision that you've been putting off?
Oh, that I will be safe and nurtured and all things will turn out well.
Exactly. And speaking of turning out well, you're going to bring on our next guest. Door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, door number 3.
And she is performing this weekend, and
Yeah.
she is going to be appearing at Don't Tell Mama. She's been on the show many times. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. Everybody, it's Meg Flather. Here she is.
Hello.
How are you, Meg?
I'm very impressed with Patti.
Oh, Meg.
I am. And I have to tell you, I think people that know their grammar are so hot. It's a new thing in my life because I think grammar is so interesting. And when it's done well and someone is confident about their grammar and they're a good writer, it's like,
Indeed.
you'll play it safe, like you use the M dash and the semicolon and the colon and the hyphen with such confidence.
Listen to you.
Well, I'm working on it. That's like my thing now is I want to be fearless with my writing and not play it safe with my grammar. You know? So I might be needing some tutoring, even though I know you're a speech therapist, but I could tell you know it all.
Speaking, listening, reading, and writing. But if you need a proofreader, I'm happy to help.
Very good.
Oh,
We got that taken care of.
I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Patti earlier. What does it mean for you as both an artist and as an audience member? What is cabaret to you? And what is the experience like on either side of the footlights for you?
I love what Patti had to say, the fact that it is this intimate art form of storytelling. But I also would add no fourth wall. And if there's a character, the artist is using themselves to fill in the character. And that's why it's really not for, I mean, actors can be successful in cabaret, but they have to work very hard to demand that they are authentically present. So I think it's the most revealing art form. It's the art form where you have to trust you're enough. It's the art form where you have to trust your story, your stillness, your instrument, what you have to say is enough. And I think that takes a lifetime, which is why I'm so grateful that it's an art form that we can do well into our hundreds, you know, because I feel like I'm just getting it, just beginning to get a sense of not pushing, of not trying too hard, of trusting, and of really depending on the audience as your scene partner. And in the old days, I would just look over their heads at the exit sign, thinking I was doing cabaret. And no, it's every single person in that audience should have several moments with you and affect how you sing that lyric, that moment, that night, that'll never be the same again. So I think that's the other real piece, that there is no fourth wall, and that the audience is 50% of the scene.
Now, Patti mentioned a pivotal moment when she ran into Marilyn May, and that changed the trajectory of her life and career. Do you know the pivotal moment that changed for you?
I was so blessed. I didn't know anything about cabaret. Where I was at NYU's Tisch Musical Theater Department, getting ready to play a nun forever on a tour of The Sound of Music. And my classmate, Christian Daisy, learned about this place called The Duplex on 55 Grove Street. And he approached me and said, "You want to work on a cabaret act?" I didn't know what that was. And what was cool about that is because I didn't know about it, what it was, I wasn't intimidated at first. We just went in and did it. Then I started doing my homework. And I remember I have a wonderful memory of my parents and I going to the ballroom and seeing Karen Akers perform.
Wow.
And it was an out-of-body experience for me because I remember, to this day, I remember where I sat. I remember all this lavender light around her in one of those white, beautiful ensembles, and the very flapper, very Downton Abbey meets the 80s, and talk about stillness and talk about trusting your audience. And now she's my friend. Now she comes to my shows and we talk about aging in cabaret together. But she was a turning point. And of course, Jeff Harner was also.
You have the new CD out, everybody.
Yes, I just got mine in the mail last night.
I downloaded it today, but I want to give if you follow my newsletter, I advertise the Broadway radio show. And this Sunday, Jeff Harner is going to be the guest discussing and dissecting, I like to use that word, Cy Coleman. So please tune in if you can. That's our shout out to you, Jeff. So yes.
He was also the first fancy show I went to because we were classmates at NYU. And he was the first to venture out. He had met Alex, and he would, in the old days, you'd get flyers in the mail, right? You'd get the postcard in the mail. And so I remember saving my pennies and going to see him at a place called Mr. Sam's.
Yes.
Where Val Ryder was running the sound and lights.
God.
And I remember the tablecloths and the candles and the bread basket, thinking this is very classy, and being blown away by my friend. And where Jeff was really, really a precursor is that he was doing thematic shows before everybody else. He was focusing on an artist, a songwriting team, and that was very smart. It took me a long time to give myself that permission. But I love that he was doing it then. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And it was the 80s, and cabaret was so hot. Don't Tell Mama had just opened when we booked a 5 o'clock on a Thursday night,
And packed them in.
I'm sorry?
And packed them in.
Oh, packed 15 in, yes.
Well, my very first show at Don't Tell Mama was at midnight on a Friday night.
Oh, wow.
At a full house. I'm going to ask you a question, and then we're going to bring on our next guest. But
Yes, dear.
do you know where you were 5 years ago tomorrow night?
5 years ago tomorrow night. So that's 2000 was that your, yes!
We were doing
yes. Oh my God.
Warner Brothers musical.
I love that show. And you assigned me to learn My Forgotten Man, and that became a staple in the Tracy Stark, Lenny Watts, Meg Flather collaboration.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for that because you have beautiful taste. Well, I don't want to say beautiful. That's not the word. You have a gift with casting your people. And the fact that you had me learn that, and I did the homework, and I saw it sung in the film, and I was so.
Don't tell everybody, look it up. So I'm going to let you pull a number 1 through 3, and then you're going to bring in our next guest.
Yes. 1 through 3. I like 2. How about 2?
Okay. And it is. Well, what was your first show? What was the first cabaret show that you saw, and what was the first cabaret show that you appeared in?
The first cabaret, I'm going to say the first cabaret that I saw is Jeff Harner.
Okay.
At Mr. Sam's, with tablecloths and candles. And then my first show was Leather and Flather, when so Christian Daisy was Leather and I was Flather. And we were sort of a Burns and Allen takeoff, Popeye and Olive Oil. And we were really cool because we were NYU students and we packed the place with our friends. So we sang Ricky Lee Jones, Joan Armatrading, The Roaches, Joe Jackson, Gilda Radner material.
Wow.
We sang things like Poisoning Pigeons in the Park, Janice Ian. He was really very, very brilliant. He is very, very brilliant. And so we combined comic songs, the covers of our day. We were doing Howard Jones and what was on the radio. And then we would sneak in, because we needed to, a standard here and there, a show tune here and there. But yeah, so we were Leather and Flather at the duplex.
That's great. So we got our next guest, door number 1 or door number 2?
So should I choose?
Yes.
Door number 1.
And I had the great pleasure of meeting her just last month because I was asked by Lenny Watts to come in and be one of the judges for the next big act. And Camille Diamond was in the show. She was phenomenal. She's a great entertainer. And she has a new show that she's going to be bringing up to Don't Tell Mama. That's the club today. Don't Tell Mama next month, 3 Sundays, all at 6 o'clock. And I am thrilled that she's here today. Camille, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so delighted to be here, especially with Meg. I'm just a huge fan, and Patti. Oh my gosh, this is like being, with your heroes. So thank you for inviting me. Really.
Well, Camille, I'm going to begin with you. How would you describe cabaret to someone who may not know, both from an artist perspective and from the audience?
I mean, one of my favorite things is when people first go cabaret and they imagine, they imagine burlesque. That's their first thought. They're like, "Oh, do you wear those things?" I'm like, no. Right? Let's take several steps backwards.
For that,
It's really funny. It always makes me laugh that is their first, thought when I say cabaret. They're like, oh, and you work with children, So yeah, so it's I always say that it is an intimate show with music in small rooms, where you get to know both the performer and different interpretations of songs that you may or may not know. And I always think that, to me, that's the most exciting thing about being in the audience. As an artist, boy, I was a musical theater performer for years before before I did my current career. And the thing that was always interesting about theater is that as an actor, you have some choices, but there are a lot of choices you don't have. You don't get choice, or you don't get a choice of who you play. That's somebody else's decision. You don't get to necessarily decide where you want to move, how you want to express a thing. You can collaborate, but it's never in the end your decision. And in the end, it's always up to the director, whom you may or may not agree with. And you don't get to choose the venue. You don't get to choose, you're just lucky to be working, and you're so happy to be working that you tend to, well, at least I found as an actor, I often, a part of me gave my power away to that. The thing about cabaret that's so delicious to me is that you choose the songs, you choose who you want to work with, you choose, you find somebody who's a director that you just love, and then you go, would you work with me? And when they say yes, you feel like you've won the lottery. You work with music directors, and they have an idea and you have an idea, but it's a true collaboration, and you learn so much from that. As an artist, I find it to be it is the most satisfying experience that I've had as an artist, for sure.
Do you remember the first cabaret show that you saw?
It's funny. I heard what Patti and Meg said about it. What I remember is, I grew up in Kansas City in the Midwest, so we didn't. And ironically, where Marilyn Maye was freaking born and was singing all the time, and I didn't even, I didn't know. It was, you only can go kind of where your parents go and what you know. But what I remember is seeing certain things on TV that made me go, ah. Like as a child, I remember staying up way too late and seeing Bernadette Peters, who was a music guest on Saturday Night Live, singing "Johnny, Keep Your Gun Clean," which I didn't quite get, but loved still. She was a character. She's
Making Love Alone. Making Love Alone.
Exactly. Which I did understand strangely, but it's another show. But what was it? Just seeing how different she was than all the other music guests. A lot of the music guests were, maybe rock and roll. I'd kind of wander away and get a snack. Her, I was riveted. I remember Liza on TV, the Liza with a Z show, like seeing those things. And then HBO later would bring these things back. Sidney Meyer will often say, those concerts, those are cabaret. And he's right. That was really what I felt. Later on, when I was in college, I remember a friend and I we decided we wanted to do a cabaret show together. And we had the art ready. We had the title. It was in the middle of Kansas. We were going to call it 500,000 Steps to Broadway. We were all set to do it. And our advisors wouldn't let us do it because they were like, you're going to have plenty to do already. And we don't, I think really they just didn't want to open the door to anybody else who might want to, do that. And then what would they do? But I've always been drawn to it and wanted to do it. I didn't really start doing it until after my children were old enough that I could start taking classes.
Your children? You look like you're a small child yourself.
Bless you. See, this is my Yeah. When my daughter was 3, she's my youngest. When she was 3, I started taking Helen Baldessari's classes. And
Wow.
what a lovely, gentle re-entry into performing.
What was their experience of seeing you on stage? I mean, were you able to take them to the cabaret rooms early on? I mean, that's one thing that I will say about the cabaret rooms in New York. They are pretty open about having kids in the audience, which I think is wonderful. I mean, even when I was a judge, there was a young girl that was in the audience that night. And I love the fact that you may not have liked it, but I liked the fact that she was yelling comments to the performers on stage.
That might have been my daughter. Yeah.
Was it your daughter?
It might have been my daughter. She was, possibly.
But she is engaged.
Yeah. So yes. First of all, this is my first. This is my first show. It's my debut. I've never done a show, but I've taken lots of classes and done those kinds of things. I was in the Tomatoes Got Talent contest a couple of years ago, and I'm going to get to do their sort of like all-stars thing they're doing this year, which is really going to be a kick. So my kids have come to all of those things. If I have a show, they come. And my son doesn't really he doesn't really love the performing arts, but he loves the cabaret rooms. He fell in love with uh, uh, Larisha. He fell in love with Larisha. We all did, you know.
She was on the
Larisha
show
won.
last week.
She
Yes.
was Mama's Next Big Act winner. She was
Yes, she
amazing.
was on last week.
Yeah. Oh, she's amazing. But yeah. And then my daughter is a performer herself. She just started high school at Talent Unlimited, the musical theater track. She's very into it, very involved, and she loves coming to these shows.
Oh,
Well, that's great. Well, there are two cards left, one or two. So you pull, and then we're going to bring up our next guest.
I'll do one.
And the question is, if you could meet any, you mentioned some cabaret performers that you saw on television. So if you could meet any cabaret artist from the past, and you could sit down and have dinner with that person, who would that person be and why?
Alive or dead, or
Live or dead?
okay. It's a toss-up. Part of me really wants to grab Patti LuPone and ask her about that show that she did when she was doing Evita, and then she was, when she was on vocal rest. Like, oh, what the hell? Maybe I'll do a cabaret show after Evita anyway. Like, I just love that.
Very famous cabaret show.
Right? Oh God, that's so fascinating to me. And the other person that I just love, I don't know if he's classically a cabaret person, but I'm so inspired by Alan Sherman.
Yes.
Right? Because I mean, he had the most tragic and I mean, his childhood was horrific, and the way that he channeled all of that pain into these parodies, it was like, well, I have to be funny, and funny was his survival. If he met me today, honestly, I mean, he was a man of his time. He'd probably either, like hit on me or ask me to get him some coffee, honestly. But if our souls could meet on a different plane, I would just really love to know how all of that trauma inspired what he was able to create in this world and give to this world. I mean, I read his autobiography when I was 15 years old, and I kept coming back to it. It's art in itself. It's a little of its time. You have to excuse some of it, but it's a beautiful work of art.
So we are so lucky in New York that there are so many rooms to celebrate. And Gloria Beachman, of course, Del Tomana, but Pangea also has some amazing entertainers coming up. And our next entertainer is actually going to be at Pangea. And he has been breaking records there. And they keep bringing him back again and again and again. And we're going to meet him right now. David Mills, I'm going to remove this. And there you are. How are you, David?
I'm well. How are you? Nice to meet you. All of you. Nice to meet all of you.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for your patience in the wings. David, where, and how did it begin for you?
Cabaret.
Cabaret.
I come out of the stand-up comedy world, and I have been doing stand-up comedy in London for the past 23 years, and just moved back to New York. And really, I just found, the cabaret scene in the UK is sort of a bit more of a hodgepodge than what we're used to in New York. It's so interesting listening to all of you talk about your cabaret heroes and the sort of traditions around cabaret here in New York, whereas in the UK, it's much less defined and much broader. So there's a lot of room for sort of stand-up comedy or magic or mime or dance in cabaret. So we would see things in the US or in the UK that maybe you would look at and think, oh, well, that's not cabaret. But in the UK, it's classed as cabaret. So I think that I just sort of got bored with the conventions of stand-up comedy and wanted to expand my own creativity. So I started bringing music into my act, and then found that kind of music stand-up mix is much closer to what we think of as cabaret here in the US. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of been my experience.
Was it an easy transition for you to step out of what the norm was for you and go into a different way of presenting your work? Or
the difficulty is that really in the UK that usually cabaret has a much more visual aspect to it, either drag or costume or, as I said, magic or some sort of physicality. And I'm a pretty still performer, you know, on a stool in that kind of New York tradition, you know. So while I understood myself as cabaret in a New York sense, in London, they almost wanted more from me. There almost wasn't enough going on, you know. The real purveyor of the kind of New York style cabaret in London is Barb Younger.
Oh,
And
yes.
right, of course, she's an old friend of mine as well. So she gave me hope that there was room for that kind of New York style cabaret in London. And I don't want to suggest that it's not there. It's just that there aren't as many opportunities to perform. So the challenge for me was finding a way and spaces to do what I wanted to do in London. And it's one of the reasons I've come to New York as well, to kind of expand and grow as a performer and grow my audience, really.
Well, this is a question that many people are asked that perform on both sides of the pond, but do you find audiences are pretty much the same wherever you're performing, or do you feel that they're different?
I think in many ways they're the same, and in some specific ways they're different. So mostly the big difference is that usually in the US, your audience wants you to succeed.
Yes, I love what Nick is doing.
Yeah, yes. And in the UK, they can be a little bit like this, you know, okay, go ahead and impress me.
Prove it to me. Show me why I bought my cover.
Exactly. Justify the ticket that I bought. So that's heartening. But I also want to keep that edge that I learned and developed in London, because I don't want to go back and find that my skills are sort of dulled. You know, it keeps you on your toes, that, you know what I mean? You really have to work. And I don't want to suggest that the audiences in New York haven't kept me on my toes. They absolutely have. But there's a more, they sort of start with a smile. They're willing in a way that the UK perhaps, maybe because getting up and speaking in a pub and all that tradition in the UK has been around for so long, they're sort of, I don't know, they're sort of a little bit more jaded to the whole thing.
Can I ask a quick question? And this is going to sound like a dime store therapist, but why not? Do you think it has a little bit to do with the fact that in New York, a lot of us are in therapy, have been in therapy, will be in therapy, are working on our inner stuff, that we are more available as audience members to a story on a stage about your stuff? Because I feel like maybe in the UK they're a little more shy, a little more reserved. They don't want to show you that they're feeling anything because of
that could be part of it. You know, there's much more of a tradition of that kind of therapeutic conversation and experience in the US than there is in the UK. You know, they have their own ways, and I love it over there and I love it here. So I don't want to tear them down. It's just a way, it's just learning how to sort of get in there and find them, you know, meet them at where they are.
Yeah.
So
it's actually interesting, because I think it would also make you really good at not pushing, like trusting your work and not needing the reaction right away. Like not taking your cue from the audience, but just continuing on with what you intend to do, because people don't always show that they're having a great time, and they are.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, we're artists, so it kind of doesn't matter what I don't want to suggest it doesn't matter what the audience responds or says, but we have to do what we have to do, and we have to find our best expression. And I believe that if I feel confident in my best expression of an idea or a moment or a song or a joke, and the audience is not with me, it's not because they're wrong and I'm wrong, it's because we just didn't meet.
Right.
You know, that's the best expression of that moment for me. And they weren't there for it, but that doesn't mean that that's broken. It just means it wasn't in the right setting or something. I don't know. And then sometimes it's important to listen to your audience and say, actually, that was terrible. I need to let it go. You know, I need to give up on that moment.
Well, David, there's one question left, and it's got your name on it. And it says, when it comes to your art, every day I will become more, fill in the blank.
Refined.
Good answer. Good answer. Those of you who watch the show on a regular basis, those of you who know me, I read a lot of books on spirituality and positivity and creativity, and I like to tie them all together. So I have put together some questions on your artistic process, and we're just going to do a round robin game here as we end the show. Patti, I'm going to start with you. What does your perfect workday look like when it comes to your art?
My perfect workday would be I would get up well rested and putter around the house, take care of what needs to be done, do some vocalizing, head into the city for a rehearsal, which goes smashingly well. And then while I'm in the city already, I would stop to see a show, to be educated and enriched by others in the field, and then come home, have a good night's sleep.
And do it all over again the next day.
Do it all over again.
I love that. That's wonderful. Meg,
Yes, sir.
What is the biggest challenge that you feel that you have faced when it comes to cabaret, and how did you get through it?
It's interesting. We've really been talking about it. For me, it's that I'm enough. I don't have to turn the dial a little louder. So much of my story, as the bottom of 4 kids with 2 parents saving the world as Peace Corps directors in Micronesia, and they're both were Geminis, all 4 of them, was I was like a wind-up doll. You know, I wasn't tap dancing on the counter. I thought I was invisible. So much of my work has been about stripping that away and trusting the Meg sitting still and telling a story is enough. And that's where we really need our teachers. I'm very grateful for my teachers, particularly Lenny Watts. There's something about the way he coaches me, because he just gets right to it. He doesn't mix words. He's never cruel, but I trust his truth telling. And he has been instrumental in just stripping all that spin away, all that stuff that I've got in the way to be liked. And now it's a choice to use that stuff if it fits a character, if it fits a maniac character. But I think that's been the greatest work. I mean, to really to trust that we are enough. That's so huge. Standing there in a black top and leggings, you know, you're enough. Just sing the damn song.
That's great. And no one is going to show up that doesn't want to be there to support you. You know, so know that. Camille, what is the one activity that you're naturally drawn to when it comes to your art? And do you spend at least 5 minutes a day doing it?
Yes. Like you, I am an artist's way aficionado. So for me, the 2 things are morning pages and walking.
Yes.
You know, and when I can't walk, I'm also sort of a bit of a gym rat, you know, so it's really important to me to just move. I think walking is great, but it's really moving your body in the way that it feels best to be moving in that moment. There are some days when, you know, like the stretching feels really important. There are some days when strength and groundedness feels really important. But writing is essential. I started doing the artist's way during the pandemic, and it was life-changing. This show.
I do it every morning. My morning page is very important. Yep. David, what is your favorite book that you've read about the artistry of your craft?
Oh, wow. Gosh, that's such a good question. I'm gonna answer that, but in a kind of indirect way.
Okay.
it's not a book. My thing is on stage is so much about language. So while of course I sing, I have much more patter than I have songs, you know. So I want to be really, really precise in my language. So I guess I would say that I've drawn inspiration from authors and writers who are extremely precise. And one book that I return to again and again, just because it's so funny and so well written and so insightful, is the memoir by Tina Brown about her years at Vanity Fair.
Wow.
So you may know that she was the editor of Vanity Fair in the 80s and into the 90s, and she came over from UK Tatler, and she was sort of a young upstart who really completely revived that magazine and made it smart, made it relevant, made it essential reading in that era for celebrity news, for politics, lifestyle, style. And she did it with real grace and style and humor and precision. And her writing is sort of invigorating because it gets it so right in every sentence, and you think, God, she really said that exactly correctly. You were talking, Meg, you were talking about grammar. You would really love it because she's amazing. When it comes to
grammar turns me on. It's fun foreplay.
Yeah. So I would say, I think it's called the Vanity Fair Diaries, and it's Tina Brown.
Well, believe it or not, Zora has made it back.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that she is here. And so I'm going to bring her right on. Zora, I missed you, and I was worried that you were not going to make it.
I know I was here. I just don't know what it's like to be backstage with Richard Skipper. I don't know what to do. I was there. I was like, geez, I'm falling asleep here. What's going on? Are they supposed to knock on my door? I don't know. I don't have a virtual door. So I didn't know what's going on.
But I'm glad you're here. You're here now. And that,
yes.
So Zora, when, where, and how did it begin for you in cabaret?
Oh, in cabaret? Oh, you mean like 1,000 years ago, you mean, or the other day?
1,000 years ago or the other day?
Well, what happened was I was in Hair, you know, the show, and then I came to New York, and there were tons of cabarets, and it was easy, you know, to go to a cabaret, but it was never easy to get an audience. But things never change, do they? So, so anyway, I just did it, and I did it at Reno Sweeney's, which was a cool club. And Elena Reed opened the club, and she starts with A, and I closed it. My name is Zora because we were too loud, and so they closed the club. But yeah, I've been, and then you know what happened was, yeah, so I did a number of things, and I decided, oh, you know what, this is what happened. I was staying at Mark Shaman's birthday party. That's what I did. He was turning 60. He used to play with me when he was 18. So it was his birthday party in 2019. And there were all these people there. And when I was younger, he would, I would play, you know, we'd sing Where or When all the time. And so he had all these people, you know, there like, oh, I don't know, like that were performing. Christine Ebersole, the cast of Hairspray, Jennifer Lewis from St. Louis, and a bunch of people. And then he said, do you want to sing? I was like, yeah, okay. So I sang Where or When. And I got to tell you something. I haven't sung in years. I've been a mother. I'm a tour guide. You know what I mean? I've been a billion things. But I hadn't sung in a long time, especially in a crowd like with 350 people, you know? And what happened was, after the song, I'm not kidding, everybody stood up, 350 people, I'm not kidding. It was just, wow. And then Bette Midler was there, who I've known through Mark, but not really. I never had coffee with her. She's always been nice to me and everything, and you could talk to her, but it's not like she's calling me up saying, how you doing? So,
well, like I said to you the other day, that's her loss.
Well, she's great. I mean, I love her.
I love Bette Midler. I'm saying the fact that she hasn't gone out with you for coffee.
Oh yeah, I know. But I did take her on a tour once. Her daughter and my daughter, and I took Bette Midler to Chinatown, and we ate dim sum. But you know, I don't see her all the time. So anyway, get this. So she writes me in, she gets my text, you know, the texting. I said the texting, that shows my age when I use like the instead of it, the Facebook. So she wrote me, she said, well, I got to get you out there. Like that, she said it like that. We got to get you out there. And I thought, okay. She said, I want you to record that song, Where, When. I thought, okay, I'll do it. She said, I want to put it on my Twitter feed. I said, okay, all right. And so I sang the song, I recorded it, right? And then it was, the pandemic was coming, and she got the recording, and then she used the recording to underscore these images of New York emptied out, sort of haunting images that were really were very heartbreaking, you know, images. And then I thought, oh, golly, I should sing again. You know, I haven't sung in years, and you know, I sing at home, you know. So I decided during the pandemic, there wasn't any opportunity to sing, you know. But last year, oh, this is what happened. Get this. I was in a documentary in 1979. Okay, that's a long time ago. It was rather old. Yeah, I'm rather old, but that's okay. So the girl, I did this documentary, it was called Comedian, because I was trying to get into cabaret, but back then, I'm really a singer, but I put together this show at Once Upon a Star with all comedians, because there are only, you know, like Toady Fields and Joan Rivers, there weren't that many comedians. So I put an ad in show business and backstage, and I got all these girls to sing, you know, not to sing, to do their act, and it got on the, it was in the Times and stuff, and so that's sort of started it. So people thought I was a comedian, but I'm not really a comedian. I don't do comic sets, you know, per se. But that was the only way I could go in there, and so so I don't know why I'm talking about this now. Why?
Oh, yeah.
Why am I talking about this?
Oh,
yes. No, it was the. Oh, so this girl said, I want to do a documentary about. It's going to be called Comedian. It's going to be you and another girl. I said, okay. So we did it, and it was me and this other girl, and there was no singing. You know, I did the grand finale. Had this show called the Zora Show. It was sort of like Loretta Young on acid. You know, so. So what happened was, years go by, 78. So I'm friends with her. So I go out with Kathy Matheson and she says to me, she says, you know, do you remember that you signed a contract with me? I was like, I did? You know, it was like 3 years ago. What I did? What I signed? She said, you signed a contract that if the movie made money, you would make money. I was like, yeah, that ship sailed. She said, well, my mom died and I have all this money. I'm going to give you a bunch. I'm not going to say how much because maybe she'd get mad. $10,000. And she gave me the money and I said, holy Toledo, I'm going to use that money. And I'm going to use that money and I'm going to do cabaret again because it's expensive. You don't really make any money. You know, you spend a lot. And I thought, I'm going to do that. And I've always loved Bette Sussman. She did one night for me at
I love her.
He's great.
At the Metropolitan Room years ago, like one night. And in 11. And I haven't done anything since. And I said, get Bette Sussman, and she'll be my musical director. And then I have this really cool guy, Zev Katz, who's played like Hall & Oates and everything. And I decided to put a show together. And I did. And then I was going to do it at Pangea, and then I have a residency like once a month, mostly, and I was just sick with nerves. I got to tell you something. I'd wake up and go like, why am I doing this? But then I would just keep going, and you know how it is. You know when you're going like, what the hell? It's so nerve-wracking. And then trying to get people and making sure you have enough money. But I had enough money to pay the band, and I still have some money left, and so I'll keep going until the money's gone.
Well, keep that. The money's
There's the story in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
You know, as we did, you know, when you were in the wings, I had a mystery question for everyone, and the question that I've got for you, it's actually a statement, and I'm going to read the statement, and then I want you to run with it. And the statement is it's an affirmation statement, and the statement is, "My presence is my power." Do you believe that?
Do I believe that?
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Yes.
I believe that, oh, this is what happened to me one time. Like I would go home, like in the 80s. It was 79. I forget when it was. It was a long time ago. I couldn't find an apartment, and I just thought I'm going to relax. I'm going to find an apartment, and I really believe in visualization too. And I thought, you know what? I need an apartment that's under $200. I need an Upper East Side. It was reasonable then. And I needed near Desmond Child, and you know him. He used to be he's a songwriter, and his girlfriend. And I would go home every night. I'd look. It wasn't like I was waiting for it to appear like that. I'd go and I'd look. It was snowing. It was January. But I just kept present. I just was waiting for it to come. I expected it. And I found an apartment. Get this. On the Upper East Side. Okay, it was a tenement. It was 5-story walk up. It was a tenement. It was $185. And it was 2 doors away from Desmond Child.
Wow. You made it happen.
Yeah, you can. I mean, I know, some people think you're pretty woo-woo, and sometimes it's pretty negative, and I'm like, but
I'm a woo-woo guy. So
but I believe in that. I believe, I know it sounds, but I believe that, that there's far more than we can see, that we're part of a billion things, and also, well, I'm taking up so much time. I shouldn't take up so much time. Go ahead. You want to talk? Anybody?
No, finish your statement first, and then we'll move on.
Okay, so really quickly, I really believe that there's things out there. Like my mom died, and I told my mother I'd like to have a sign, and then I went down a rabbit hole because I was so sad she died, and I said, I'll just wait for a sign, Mom. I wait for a sign, and half a year went by. I was really sad. I went with my daughter to a house in the country, and I was listening to Dave Brubeck. I felt better, and I exhaled because I didn't feel so sad about my mom anymore. I just felt something. I don't know what it was. And I got up and I walked past the dining room, and no one had been there all week. I was there with my daughter. No one had been there all week. She was 7 years old then, and she's 36 now. And then I looked at the dining room table, get this, and there was a candle burning.
Wow.
And nobody had been there all week. And it blew my mind. The next morning, I'm in a hammock. I'll tell my daughter, she's 7, and you know what she said to me? Let's get out of here. It's haunted.
Great. So I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask each of you one last question, and then I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word, which I will explain in just a moment. But Patti, I'll come back to you for a moment. When did you know that you desired to be in this profession?
I was 3. And I share in my act that my first performance, I was in kindergarten. And I remember being on this seemingly huge auditorium stage. And yeah, there I was. And, Richard, as I look at this picture and then I look at my flyer, I'm making the same side eye. That's my look. That's my look. It's hilarious.
It was trending then.
Yeah. See, the opposite side, but I'm making the side.
I love it.
Yeah, it was little.
That's great. Meg, who have you studied with that has made the biggest impact on your performing career?
You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to get a little woo-woo, but I'm going to say my therapist, because she was the first one that I trusted, because I shopped around a lot, to chip away at my mask. And I remember her on the very first day, she said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Because I have this mask up and I'm so afraid that if I take it down, there's nothing there." And she said, "Well, let's chip at it together." So I would practice with her, trusting the enoughness of myself. Her name was Lana Shalavine. She was a brilliant therapist, brilliant, and so good with boundaries. Never was about her. It was like she really was that professional. It wasn't until the very last session that she told me that before she was a therapist, she was an actress, and she was actually very, very close. She did a lot of Broadway and everything, to Jerry and Elaine Orbach. But she kept that so quiet for all those years. She was just my person. So I would say her first, because without that practice that I was enough in my day to day, there would be no intimacy, there'd be no vulnerability, there'd be no telling the truth, and then there'd be no interpretation of a lyric or a story that anybody would want to hear. So I would say I'd start with her, but then the teachers that have followed, the voice teachers and the directors that have followed, I choose them all because they are committed to helping me trust the essence is enough.
That's great. Camille, in your career performing, what is getting to be, what is taking up the most of your time right now, other than the fact that you have a new show coming up next month?
Well, gosh, I would say at the moment it is, so my show's about astrology. It's astrology based. And I really got in touch with myself through astrology. And I'm a Sagittarius, but I'm a Capricorn moon. I got a lot of earth in my chart. And one thing that I really know, right? The one thing that I really learned about myself is that I need to be grounded in all the stuff so that I can shine. So right now it's all about knowing my lyrics, knowing where I'm going to move, knowing exactly how I want to approach a song, knowing what my vision for this thing is. I want to know it. It's like you just want to immerse yourself in all the data of everything, so then you can just forget it and then do your thing.
That's brilliant.
Wow. Good. I can't wait to see it. David, what is getting too little of your time when it comes to your career right now?
Work. I need more work. I want to gig more. I mean, there's nothing like gigging all the time.
I want to get on that bandwagon. Yes.
Big audiences, small, just gig and gig and gig and gig. You were talking about getting being grounded in the mechanics of your show. And to me, it's about craft. A crafts person makes and makes and makes and makes and makes and makes, and they get better and they refine and they learn things and they apply those things and they fail and they get back up and they do it again and again and again. And to me, that's what I do in stand-up, and that's what I want to do in cabaret as well. I just want to work all the time, everywhere, keep getting better, keep refining, just work.
Manifest it.
Yep.
Zora, social media, it's a necessary evil. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And how are you tackling social media when it comes to your self-promotion?
Well, my friend made a poster and I just go on Facebook. You know what, I think that works. I don't know. But, you go on, I don't like going on Facebook all the time, but when you're having a show, you have to go on and like things for the algorithm, right? Like. So I just go on and Instagram. My daughter helps me figure out how to post the links and stuff, and then I simply go on and do personal messages to everybody, and I just do a lot, And then I live in a big building that has a lot of people, so I'm an elevator buddy, I think, for a lot of people. So I think I'm going to put it in my building link too. So that's what I do. I mean, I just cross my fingers. I do it like once a month. So it's like, I got to get New York to cough up 50 people. That's what. And so far, so good. I've coughed up 50 for 8 times. So if I can cough up 50, break even, I'm good. So I'll do anything to.
Great. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here. I admire all of you tremendously, and even David and Zora, who I'm getting to know for the first time. I cannot wait to be part of that 50 in both of your shows.
Yeah, David, I saw you already. It was great.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to see you. I'm going to give each of you a chance to have your final word. It can be about anything that we spoke about today that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message you want to leave everyone who's watching now. When I finish, I will pick the next person, and then you will pick that person, and so on and so on. And when the last person says goodbye, the final credits will roll, so you don't have to worry about how this is going to happen. I'm going to go back, and I quote her quite often, and that's Carol Channing, who I was lucky enough to have as a dear friend. And Carol said to me once that an audience, in order for a show to succeed, it has to be people from all different walks of life. You need doctors and lawyers and teachers and housewives and just any group of people coming together who share in the collective joy of what's happening on that stage. And the greatest gift that we can give each other is support. And we live in, all of us are in a business where we are constantly being knocked down. We are seeing things happening that are not necessarily fair. That's why, and I'm in solidarity with the unions that are on strike right now. They are fighting for what is right. So please, we've got to be patient, but we've all send that collective force out there that this is going to get resolved soon. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Zora brings up something very interesting about algorithms. Social media is made up of three things that make it work: like, comment, and share. Every single person that we encounter wants to be acknowledged. So I know it's very easy to just simply go past the post and everything. It takes very little effort to either hit the like button, the comment button, or a share. And as you go through the rest of the day, make sure that you take the time to do those things because it will help it to get seen by more and more people. It's important that we all do that. I also want everyone to pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in a long time. Go to your Facebook friends list, and the first name, there are 3 little boxes of friends. The first friend, pick up the phone and call that person and tell them about today's show. Tell them about the artists that you've seen here. And if you get a chance, ask if they're able to go to see one of these shows that are coming up. And that way we can all build each other's audience that way. I have a dear friend, Sean Moniger, and he says we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. And with that, I'm going to leave the screen. And Camille, I'm going to turn it over to you. And then when you finish, you'll pick the next person. Everybody, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Oh, there's no pressure in being the first for a final word. Not at all. I just want to say I'm a huge cabaret fan. I'm a huge jazz fan. I go see things all the time. I'm inspired all the time. I am so honored to be here with this particular group today. And I'm honored to be a part of the cabaret community. I think that one of my favorite things about the cabaret community is the community of it. I love the way we support each other. I love the way we're inspired by each other. And I love the way that we see each other grow. And I am looking forward to seeing everybody in this box on stage and anybody who's watching in their show. As soon as I go to Facebook and like their posts.
There you go.
And Meg, you're next.
Okay. Oh, you all are so cool. And it's such an affirmation, again, about the real world is the invisible world. And you just show up and you get what you need. You get what you need. It's been an odd week for me. And here we are. And I feel so fed by these conversations and by the host that Richard is. So I guess my final thought is to trust the invisible world. Trust what's out of our control, that we are enough. Show up for our lives as best we can in the place that we're in. And again, as we recap what cabaret is, I think what I love about it so much is it's constantly changing because we're constantly changing. And we will never sing a song the same way twice. Thank God for that. All right, I'm going to pass it to you, Miss Patti.
Oh, thank you, Meg. It's really been a pleasure to be with everybody today. I was very excited to be here, and it met my expectations and more. For me, the last word would have to be, and it's so cliche, but it's so true. It's never too late. I have always been a late bloomer. I didn't learn about cabaret until I was 29 or 30. I didn't go back to school until I was 34 and then graduate school thereafter to become a speech-language pathologist, which I know I was born to do. I wanted to be that when I was 12, when I watched the Helen Keller movie, The Miracle Worker. I was like, oh man, giving somebody communication, what a thrill. But I didn't think I was smart enough. and took me a bunch of time to realize that I was. And then coming back after 27 years of dabbling with cabaret in the late 80s, it's never too late. What's happening for me now is just truly a dream come true. So don't doubt yourself. Jump in, take the leap. Thank you. Oh, and I get to pick. I'm going to pick Zora.
Oh.
It had to happen sooner or
It
later.
had to happen sooner or later. Oh my God. My final word is, first one of the final words is like, we're talking about social media. I wish I knew how to have gotten in these conversations and gotten to know you more. But you know, it's perfect that it's ending with you, David, because I saw you perform. I don't know what my final word is. I don't have a final word except I want everyone to do well, and I want everyone to approach their art and love their life. You know what I'm saying? I mean, what can I say? David, I want to see you. You're going to be next month. I'm going to see you.
Yes, we're going to see each other because I'm going to come see you as well. And I can't
Well,
wait.
You scratch your American, I scratch yours. Anyway, that's all I can say. I'll choose you, David. It's your turn, David.
All right, my dear. So lovely to meet all of you and to hear all of your perspectives. I would say that you know, my final word is about perseverance, and it's really out to all the other artists out there working today. You know, a really well-known, successful stand-up comedian, very experienced, high-profile stand-up comedian said to me once that she knows so many great comics who were brilliant, but we've never heard of because they didn't persevere. And we all know so many mediocre comics who did persevere, and so they're successful. Perseverance is the difference between a successful artist and an unsuccessful artist. You have to keep going and going and going and going and going. And you have to keep getting up on stage even after you've failed. And you will fail again and again and again. And over time, the successes begin to outnumber the failures, but the failures still happen. And I'm so inspired to be on this program with other experienced acts who know exactly what I'm talking about. And it inspires me to keep going because every show is just a gig. There's another gig after, and there's going to be another gig after. So we can't allow one show to make or break us. We're going to keep going. And there is no final word, really, because we just keep working and working and working. Hopefully, that's at least the way I look at it. Anyway, thanks so much for the opportunity. And I'll be supporting all of you, all the other shows, and promoting them on Facebook as well. Okay, thank you.